Who doesn't remember LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga? A game where you can switch off the outside world and get sucked into a life of playing with LEGO without the added choking hazard or risk of stepping on the bricks, which I can tell you is far more painful than it has any right to be. I have very fond memories of the old LEGO Star Wars games, of which the Complete Saga is a combination bundle, and I don't even wish to fathom how many hours of my childhood were spent blissfully playing this absolute masterpiece of its time. It didn't matter what else in the world was going on, LEGO Star Wars saw me through all of it. I played it to cope with my parents' divorce, I played it to cope with subsequently moving away, starting a new life in an unfamiliar place and having to make new friends, among other teething problems. This game was my comfort in the darkest moments of my childhood, whether I realised it or not, but it also brought me such joy. This game was versatile. You could play the story and experience a LEGO take on events, play free play and imagine characters in settings you wouldn't ordinarily see them in, pit them against each other, or see what they can bring to the table in said missions for completion's sake. You could murder Jar Jar Binks because he's an annoying little fuck and must be exterminated for his crimes. You could create absolute abominations to science and character customization, taking said abominations on adventures. Playing co-op with your siblings or friends was also just packed with enough material to make you laugh. Man, this game, come to think of it, is an absolute shithouse, but mate, it's peak childhood. Fast forward time to 2022 and now we have LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. The most comprehensive LEGO Star Wars game to date, this game includes all 9 main Star Wars movies, tons of ridiculously fun side content, hundreds of playable characters, and entirely built world spaces for you to explore. This is a complete reimagination of that peak childhood that somehow doesn't have character customization. Whose idea was that? This unforgivable betrayal aside, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga slaps. This is one of those precious few games that you can completely switch off and just play. Despite being modernised, I wouldn't necessarily say that this game is challenging, but then again, isn't that the entire point considering it's a kids game? Even if at times the game does make you engage your brain, there is nobody on the planet who cannot get through this with ease, unless you have no arms, or legs, or chin. The end result is, for a kid this game is perfect, and for an adult it's a nice relaxing switch off game that may or may not make you feel nostalgic for old LEGO Star Wars games. Or Star Wars in general. All that said, it's hardly a perfect game. I have some gripes that I feel will be worth sharing in this review. For example, where the fuck is character customization, man? But you know what, for the most part, this review is going to be quite positive, because the game has made me feel quite positive. But only when I'm playing it, because my outlook on life besides is kind of dire, to be honest with you. Why does nobody love me? What I'm trying to say is my house could be literally on fire, and I would be perfectly happy as long as I have this game. The biggest talking point in this entire video is the one we're going to get out of the way instantly, if we can help it. I mean, it will probably crop up here and there as we go through, but I don't know, I'm not at the end of this video yet, am I? And this point is, of course, the modernisation of LEGO Star Wars. Not only is LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga different from previous LEGO Star Wars entries, it's different from previous LEGO games altogether. Every single licensed LEGO game that you can think of from the past has been, at least to some degree, more or less the same game as the last one, with a new coat of paint and a few new interesting ideas, and a little bit more give or take depending on what that game is actually about. But for the most part they've been sort of samey. However, that worked and the system was good for LEGO games. Unfortunately, a side effect of that is you'd play the ones that you liked for nostalgia purposes and the rest would be completely unbearable to you because it plays mostly the same and it tires you out. And the only real difference is boiled down to what story it's parodying. The Skywalker Saga didn't feel this way for me. Maybe that's partially down to the fact that I haven't properly sat down and played a LEGO game in a long time, but if LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is any indication, then LEGO games have been evolving. What I guess I'm trying to say is I haven't played every single LEGO game ever, however this one is vastly different from the ones that I have played, even though recently I did play LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens, and fortunately it's different from that. Obviously visually the game has been modernised, because why wouldn't it be? But I feel as if this is a more modern take on a LEGO game in general, because there's a lot going on in this that you see in a lot of modern games. For example, the open world backbone structure. Instead of having a hub area with 9 episodes, each comprised of 6 chapters, which has its benefits, don't get me wrong, you've got this open world space and you do the missions as you move through it depending on what chapter you choose, if you unlock it depending on whether or not you've done the chapter before. but you do have the freedom to choose which trilogy you start with, that's nice. And you go through the story as you move through these world spaces. This means you only get that title roll once per episode, thank God, and there's less time spent in menus breaking it down with continue story or returning to, say, Mos Eisley Cantina, which was the hub area in LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga. It does have positives, it immerses you more in this LEGO open world, if you want to call it that, and if that's something that you're interested in. I don't necessarily see the point, but it's there and I can admit that it is cool. And it also does have some drawbacks. If you're a completionist and that's something that you loved with regards to LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, then LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is honestly a bit of a nightmare. Fortunately, due to my disillusionment with open world games in general, I don't feel any of that completionist obligation anymore, so I just have fun in the open worlds where I'll find myself killing younglings in the Jedi Temple as Dexter Jetster. Unfortunately, there are other issues that I should bring up with regards to the open world approach rather than the simple mission structure. It can be hard at times to tell when you're in a mission and when you're just in the open world, and sometimes it'll take you a second to recognise which is which. The first thing you'll notice is you won't have the true Jedi counter, which is now broken off into 3 tiers, so you can collect Kyber bricks, which also happen to be spread across this open world and in missions, and there's like 1,000 of them, so you can see where I'm coming from when I say this is a bit of a completionist nightmare. None of this affects me because I don't care to 100% complete even my favourite games ever, but if you are a bit of a completionist, I can see this game being incredibly convoluted, especially when compared to the Complete Saga, which was quite straightforward, and that was part of its charm. I do think, however, that LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga benefits from not trying to replicate the Complete Saga. Games do need to evolve, that much is true. This game has value for what it is and is incredibly fun, but so's the Complete Saga, and I'm thankful that they aren't trying to be the same thing because frankly, I think that would make me sick. But the main point is the differing structure and the modernised take on LEGO Star Wars definitely sets these two games apart. This game also opts for a third-person camera rather than some over-the-head thing where you get like an area and the camera would move slightly as you moved through it, but you didn't have much control over that. Now you have control more over the camera, and I think it definitely works in the game's favour. More control is in your hands, and I can appreciate that. It also helps out in co-op because we now have split screen. The combat has also been modernised. It's much more fluid, though frankly I don't understand the need for health bars, and the damage numbers that fly off of enemies as you hit them, to be honest with you. I don't understand what their purpose is, because no enemy is particularly difficult to take down. Even the boss fights aren't challenging, so I don't understand why you'd need that information. It's honestly a little bit frustrating because it just appears to be something that a lot of games do these days, and the only reason they appear to do it is because a lot of games do it. But what does it actually give you? Regardless of that, the combat in gameplay is quite fun and enjoyable. There's not much depth to it, nor need there be, thankfully. It's just a nice mindless switch off. The puzzles are the same way, and that's all LEGO Star Wars needs to be, as long as it entertains you with that classic LEGO sense of humour.
This is a Tusken Raider camp, home of not just the men, but the women and the children too.
Somebody at TT Games is fucked in the head. We also have an upgrade system in this game, because of course we do. I don't frankly understand the point, but apparently all games need that. And of course the open world is full of little bits of side content for us to carry out in order to collect Kyber bricks which we can use to purchase said upgrades. The system is quite simple, so it works okay, and it's not in your face at all because you don't even need to look at it if you want to play through the games as quickly as possible without paying attention, you just can. And due to the implementation of a free play system, you can of course revisit and do these side missions at your leisure. They're not overly complicated, nor do they take particularly long, and they aren't mandatory, and that's the way that side content should be. At least as far as a switch-off game such as LEGO Star Wars is concerned. Were it like The Witcher, of course you'd want some depth in the side content, but I don't think that's necessary here. It's just extra bits that you can do for extra Kyber bricks so you can get all those upgrades if you so wish to do that. And on that, you upgrade individual classes rather than individuals or just blanket upgrades. There are some core upgrades that apply to all classes, however within the classes there are some upgrades that only apply to, say, Jedi characters, some that only apply to hero characters, some that only apply to like droids and things, or bounty hunters or scoundrels, etc. It's just pretty simple, and that's okay. I can appreciate that while these modern implementations are in the game, they aren't too heavy or they aren't too mandatory to enjoying the experience. If you just want a simple shut-off game, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's just there and can be ignored if you so wish to do so. And I suppose that's okay. The modernisation with gaming has come with a load of unnecessary features that I don't personally appreciate all of the time. That doesn't mean that they're completely valueless, I suppose that's just how I see them, but they don't tend to impact the gameplay experience of LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga too much. But on the flip side, sometimes the modernisation does come with some quality of life benefits that I can appreciate. But instead of just a remaster of the complete saga with the sequel trilogy episodes, or a remake that includes them, it's nice to see a bit of a reimagination, because it's a completely different game. What I like about this is I can set it apart from the complete saga and appreciate both for being vastly different. Moving away from all that modernisation nonsense, if there's one thing that I can appreciate about this game is that it's the most comprehensive LEGO Star Wars game to date. It has all 3 major trilogies. I believe there's going to be some DLC to add more stuff to it at some point, apparently. I don't know too much about that, but apparently that's something that might happen. There are hundreds of characters in this game. Unfortunately, there is no character customization, but hey, what can you do? It's a bit of a weird thing to cut. But the point is, it's the biggest sandbox for messing around with Star Wars characters in LEGO form and putting them wherever you want to in that universe. You've got the most possibilities there. I feel like the game being a little bit more complex due to the addition of an open world definitely harms the replay value, especially when comparing it to LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, so I can't really see myself replaying the missions in free play, but if you do want to free play these missions, I can see them as being quite entertaining. But being able to free play in the open world more so, even in between missions while in story mode, is more than likely where you're going to have the most fun with the side content and things like that, and it'll definitely provide enough room for your imagination to go wild. You can explore world spaces on 24 planets in the Skywalker Saga, which is pretty nice. So as you can imagine, that's plenty of places where you can piss around in co-op. I will say, unfortunately, co-op is where the cracks really do show in this game. Everything will go by really fast, combat can be a bit of a clusterfuck, but at the very least it's still drop dead funny. And in my opinion, that's really all that it's about. When in the story mode, the co-op doesn't exactly shine as much as I would like, and in some episodes it can be more tiresome than in others. However, in the free play, it's a little bit more consistently fun. With the implementation of a split screen while you're no longer being dragged around a map, it does sort of forego the point of LEGO Star Wars co-op. At times you're supposed to be working together. You could be across an area from your friend, doing something else entirely, which I suppose is a neat little sacrifice if you don't enjoy or appreciate being dragged around, but it definitely subtracts from the co-op aspect of co-op. However, fortunately, it's still quite entertaining to mess around with your friends. And to me, the most important thing in any LEGO games co-op is, am I pissing myself consistently? So as long as I can play as Dexter Jetster and murder some younglings in the Jedi Temple, whilst my mate plays as Han Solo in Carbonite and bounces around doing nothing, I'm happy. And I suppose that brings us to a big positive. Even though the co-op feels like an afterthought and is fundamentally broken at times, it's still heaps of fun because it just is the foundation of a LEGO game in which you can play as any character within that universe within reason, and be anywhere in that universe, again within reason, and do anything, no matter how stupid or serious, within reason, is always going to simply be fun. Because it just is, and when playing a LEGO game, simple fun is really all that I sign up for. This isn't a game that needs complex storytelling or in-depth gameplay mechanics. It just needs to be a comedic retelling of the ridiculous Star Wars stories, because when you think about it, they are kind of ridiculous, and fun, simple enough collectathon gameplay. It sticks to that formula enough for the implementation of an upgrade system, an open world, or even side content to hinder that too much, though the only obstruction I can think of in this department would be when it comes to unlocking characters. Some characters you can just buy from the menu instead of like a store in game, which I think is a little bit less interactive. I like to avoid being in menus as much as possible, but fair enough, whatever, it's however you can fit it in. But for some characters you have to buy a hint first that tells you where you can go to find a mission that will help you unlock this character, you've got to do that mission. Sometimes it will be several. For some reason, the Gonk Droid has 20 odd, because TT Games saw that the Gonk Droid was popular in LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga for being completely useless and thought, let's turn that into the most difficult character to obtain, and you'll have to go across the galaxy and do several side quests in order to be able to even unlock this character. But then in the end, you've just got to buy the character anyway. Why, in God's name, is Rebel Friend 200,000 studs? You do a mission to get the chance to unlock this character, but then you've got to buy the character anyway, and I honestly just don't see the point. If that's how simple it is, it doesn't feel like much of a reward for doing that when the reward is now you can pay to unlock this character. It's the in-game currency, it's not a microtransaction, but to me it's just a little bit unnecessary. I feel like if a character is unlocked through a mission, just unlock the character after the mission because the mission is complete, rather than unlocking the chance to buy that character with studs if you want to. I just don't see what the point is. And I also don't understand why you need to do like 20 missions in order to unlock the Gonk Droid of all characters. I get it, the Gonk Droid is a meme, it's funny, because it's a character you could just buy in the Complete Saga and fuck around with. Nobody paid any attention to the Gonk Droid, it moved ridiculously slow. There was the Super Gonk mode, which was pretty fun, though in this game the Super Gonk is a mount that you can run about with. It's a golden Gonk Droid with a mustache, it's pretty cool actually. But back to my point, I don't really understand why you need to do so many missions involving Gonk Droids just to unlock the availability of purchasing this character. I feel as if that's an excessive play on the meme, and it's really not worth that. I feel like it's just strange to put all these steps in for characters that people don't really care about. We just find funny that they were available as playable characters in the Complete Saga, but we don't have character customization. Like, why the fuck do we have Gonkatine, but not character customization? I honestly prefer how the Complete Saga handled unlocking characters, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. If we go back to that point for a second, as you encounter characters that you don't play as in the story, whilst doing the missions, you can unlock those characters to purchase from the Mos Eisley Cantina using the studs that you gathered during the missions. And I feel like that structure, while simpler and doesn't necessarily make you go out of your way and engage with side content, is just more in line with how I think it works best for LEGO games. That being said, I don't have much against side missions to unlock characters if the side mission being completed unlocked the character, instead of just giving you the option to then purchase the character using the studs that you've gathered. But if we look at the flip side, if you're collecting heaps of studs because you've unlocked the stud multipliers and essentially you're playing the game right, then this won't matter, I suppose. So you've got that little bit of hardcore LEGO Star Wars depth. I can't believe I just said that sentence. But at times I can't help but ask myself, is this necessary? But beyond that particular point, the game doesn't hinder that classic LEGO Star Wars fun very much. It does, however, on the whole, do things quite differently than I expected, for sure. I don't think that's necessarily overall a bad thing though. I do appreciate being able to go off and do some side content in this game. I'm not a completionist at heart, so I can just do as much as I feel like doing, and then I'm happy to get on my way. I'll spend the Kyber bricks on upgrades because the system is quite simple and didn't make me sigh too hard, and then I crack on with the story when I'm ready and I have a nice well-paced time. That being said, I did simply spend far too long wrecking the hidden Gungan city. Moving on, I still love the LEGO Star Wars sense of humour. You can select mumble mode if you don't like your characters talking, which is a nice touch, but I didn't find myself needing it in this. I quite enjoyed the voiced characters, though the sequel trilogy nearly made me reevaluate that. Come to think of it, so did the menu.
I need someone to show me my place in all this.
Oh my god, make it stop! The fact that this is a parody retelling of the Star Wars stories makes it bearable. Somewhat, anyhow. And if it ever were to become unbearable, at least I had that mumble mode to fall back on, though fortunately I didn't have to use it. Another positive, I know we're completely out of structure now. What did you expect from me? Let's be real. Is that different characters can do different things, so you still have that puzzle aspect to the game, which is nice. You need different characters to do different tasks, and sometimes you may be required to come back in free play to do certain things, as you don't presently have the character available to do it. As a little gripe outside of any particular segment, because I feel like while the combat is fine, the boss fights on the other hand can be a little bit more on the pagged side. I don't think it's necessarily bad for LEGO Star Wars to keep it simple. If anything, that's good, but the boss fights at times can be a little bit too simple. Not all of them, but a lot of them. For example, I'd often find myself repetitively overusing the lightsaber throw ability to just wail away at the boss's health, To me, this isn't exactly the most entertaining way to get it done, but it is a way that it works. But in the end of the day, it's meant to be simple. It's a kid's game, and if you can exploit it like that, then it's fine. It's not trying to be a Souls game and you aren't there for half an hour. There's not really much to talk about in way of story. You probably already know the Star Wars story. It's just that, but silly. On the whole, in my opinion, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is a brilliant game. It's a reimagination of that peak childhood that was The Complete Saga. The Complete Saga was that game for me, and the Skywalker Saga can't really compare, and it never will be able to. However, I can definitely see the Skywalker Saga being, for the kids of today, what the Complete Saga was for me 15 years ago. If there's one final area where this game, despite being brilliant fun, could definitely improve, it's in the bug department, especially when in co-op. There were some hilarious bugs, don't get me wrong, and I don't have anything against a hilarious bug. They make me laugh and then I forget about them, but this game definitely had its fair share and could do with a little bit of improvement in that department, but I don't think it's anything necessarily too bad. I just think that because it exists, it could do with being addressed really, but I don't think it would necessarily suffer for not being patched up. LEGO Star Wars being slightly scuffed and therefore funny only adds to the fun, it doesn't subtract from it. But yeah, I really love this game for what it is, and for where I'm up to in my life now, I suppose, as much as I can at the very least. I think there's definite room for improvement in the glitches and performance part especially. I think there are other things that maybe just don't gel as well as the old formula from the Complete Saga do, but I think there are definitely some improvements in there as well, and I really appreciate that it's not trying to be the Complete Saga, and is more or less just its own LEGO game that just happens to be around the same stories, including the sequel trilogy now, which is, I suppose, okay, but I'm going to be honest with you, those were my least favourite parts of the game. I know I've touched down on a lot of my critiques in this video, perhaps a bit more than I've touched down on the positives, and that's probably mainly because a LEGO game is fun purely because it just is for the most part, and I don't really think there's much else that can be said. So LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, on the whole, is a nice crack at reimagining that peak childhood for sure, and I'm sure it will keep LEGO Star Wars alive in the hearts of a new generation of children, so that's nice. And I suppose it's kind of touching as somebody who was there for the Complete Saga, seeing how far games have come judging by how far LEGO Star Wars has evolved, almost like judging inflation by the price of a Freddo. But overall, really fun game, really like it, definitely recommend. It's far from perfect, but it's a nice fun switch off game that is just fun because it is. Thank you for watching this review, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and all that wonderful stuff, that would be super fantastic. If you don't want to do any of that, I understand. I'll cry in the corner. You'll know where to find me. And with any luck, I hopefully will be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point. But until next time, please take care and goodbye.